Oh, Sam's been, we're going in a different direction. We're outsourcing. Yeah. All right. We working now? No. Okay. Second Industrial Revolution. I already have started recording. Second Industrial Revolution. Here we go. Which means there had to have been a first one, and we just talked about that one. Some argue agricultural was, but anyway. This is the heavy industrial revolution. This is your Carnegie and your Rockefellers, and this is your revolution of like wicked sort of, well, I guess all inventions are important, but the ones that we always talked about, you know, that guy, the Wizard of Menlo Park, and all these other things. The record player, can't think of, you know, other than the printing press, I can't think of them more important. Anyway. In the 1870s, so holy cow, like, we're almost to the 20th century. This is such a rarity in the history class. The second revolution began, again, in Britain, but that only makes sense. Again, there's your continuity. It continues in Britain. The change would be the scope of the type of advancement, or the change would be the products created. This focus was on steel, on chemicals, and on improved transportation and communications. So it's using the stuff from the first revolution as a foundation and then building upon it. How do you make steel? Thank you.
You got to put a little bit of carbon and iron to burn it up. It's a special process.
It is a special process. It's called the Bessemer process. Steel is not naturally occurring. It's actually a chemical process. All right. It would be
It's an alloy.
It is an alloy. What is it when you put two things in to get a different thing out and they can't go back to its? It's not a mixture. It's a solution. You should. But all right. The Bessemer process increased steel production while reducing the cost. Steel replaces iron by 1900. What are the benefits? Anybody out there in here of steel over iron? It's stronger.
Is it cheaper?
Yeah, well, it becomes cheap enough, but yeah, a little cheaper. Yes.
Was it lighter?
It is lighter. Yeah, its chemical properties allow it. This is how we get skyscrapers. It allows us to go vertical.
It doesn't really bend well, though.
Why do you know so much about steel?
Because it's chemistry. Chemistry's good.
We know
Isn't there
Class
steel
E-
in-
we know what Class E is fast.
Isn't there steel in like Minecraft?
No.
I don't know.
No? I'm asking. Don't judge me. All right. I've been judged a long time ago. I get that. Again, one of my favorite sayings, the day that the opinions of a 15-year-old bother me is the last day you ever see me. So I really don't care what you think of me. If I can't handle the slings and arrows from you people, what am I doing here? All right. Germany led the expansion of the chemical industry. Soaps, dyes, fertilizers, explosives.
Didn't they leave like the fertilizer because they could make the charcoal stuff? Like,
Yep.
The pot,
Bayern Munich is where you get Bayer aspirin.
like the pot.
Yeah, it's a brand of aspirin. Comes from Bayern. It should probably pronounce Bayer.
It's a soccer team.
It is a soccer team. It is a football team, but it's named for the city where they made.
They didn't have any sort of.
Well, you had lye-based soap. You had other types of, but no, you know, throughout the vast majority of mankind's time on Earth, we were filthy beasts. We didn't bathe. Who's gonna notice? If everybody's smelly, nobody's smelly. No, it's nose blind. It's like The Incredibles. If everybody's super, then there are no super. If everybody's rich, nobody's rich. No. Then wealth means nothing.
Same thing with like utopia.
Yep. coal and steam gave way to electricity, and oil, and gasoline, and that's why we gave a hooey about those countries in the desert. That's why Southwest Asia matters. Well, because that's the correct term. The Middle East is the made-up European term. All right,
What did you say is the correct term?
Southwest Asia. That's the geographic location of those countries.
Of like Saudi Arabia?
Huh? Asia goes all the way to Turkey. Thanks. Okay. Don't ask me why. Okay. In the early 1800s, Alessandro Volta and Michael Faraday discovered how to produce electricity. The dynamo was the first ever electrical generator. Faraday gave us series, I think. Electricity, anyway. Electricity can be in either parallel or it can be in series. How it's wired, how it's that's now I'm totally geeking out with Navy training here. All right, but they figured out how to make electrical power and the dynamo, the whole coil, spin a magnet. In 1879, Thomas Edison developed the first successful light bulb.
Yeah.
There were others.
Don't say that.
Okay, it's a competition though. I mean, the biggest, sort of loser of credit goes to the Radiant. It should be Tesla, not Marconi. Yes.
Can you go back one slide? Professor,
The dynamo.
oh,
The first electric generator. There you go. First electric generator. Thank you. All right. Oh, good. Thanks. I appreciate it. Okay. Lights. Electricity lit homes and powered factories and streetcars prior to electricity. How did you see at night? Candles or oil lamps. What kind of oil?
Gaslight.
Whale oil. Whale oil or some cities actually piped in natural gas into the street lights, and you would turn keys and open up the gas. So there was natural gas. But typically it was whale oil. The whales they hunted and killed. Yes.
A lot of those people.
Yep. 1876, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. Quickly becomes the essential part of the modern life. Don't we know? And your phone numbers were your street addresses.
That's where.
Like I need 7214 Claremont. And that would have been the house on 7214 Claremont. Because there are so few people with phones that could do that. No, it's just there's an actual operator. There are actually switchboard people. And you would call them and they would connect you. There's a physical connection. I remember when the first push button phone came out. It's crazy. I mean, huh?
You remember?
Yeah, I remember when cable was brand new, like 13 channels. Three plus PBS, 4.
Were they running?
ABC, NBC, CBS. Oh, I forgot. I had to buy a connector. Thank you. Because after 12 feet, it goes to 30. I didn't want to spend that much money. Okay. Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you. Oh, do anybody remember what he wanted the greeting on the phone to be? Ahoy! 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 All right, we should start that again. Juliet, Guglielmo Marconi sent radio signals directly through the air. In 1906, the first voice broadcast of radio occurred, but a guy named Tesla actually did this first.
That's what a lot of.
Yep. And maybe that's why Elon Musk named the company after him to give him a little love. I don't know.
That's also insane.
Made what?
He like basically went insane.
He went insane? Well, probably because he was wrong his whole life. All right. You know who else went insane? Aaron Burr. Who's Aaron Burr, sir?
Hamilton.
The guy who shot Hamilton?
Oh,
Never seen it.
I've
He
never
shot
seen-
Hamilton, and then he went and tried to start his own little country in Texas, and like yeah, because he couldn't be in the room where it happened. The German Nikolaus Otto, hence automobile, invented the internal combustion engine, and Gottlieb Daimler built the first gasoline-powered automobiles. And then Daimler ended up buying Chrysler. It was Daimler Chrysler for a long time. The internal combustion engine. Well, we found the oil, and we figured out how to refine it into gas. I don't know why. Like, I don't know what motivated that process.
Probably to get like, I mean, not the big stuff.
Maybe. But, I mean, usually invention is born of necessity.
They were probably thinking about it.
Well, that's not necessity. That's a what if thing. That's more of a eureka moment, which is cool. But
I mean, it wasn't you that found out where I'm right, like Europeans.
yeah, Britain remained a major industrial power, but its growth slowed by the late 1800s. If they were in first for so long, why would it slow? Anybody? Okay.
Other countries have more people.
Other countries had more people. It's Britain. It's the 1800s.
Oh, everybody hates.
They ran out of fuel.
It's Britain. Where is Britain in the 1800s? Everywhere.
Yes.
It is everywhere.
Oh, so it can't expand anymore.
It has, maybe it can't expand anymore. It has all the resources it needs because it has colonies. It has all the labor it needs because it has India. I mean, so what is it? Hypothetically, then, if it's not that causes it to slow down, maybe it is.
The citizens don't agree.
Maybe, but we know they didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the British ones.
Oh, the British citizens?
Like they started like the
Oh, no, they don't care about that. Most citizens don't care about that anyway. Just give me my stuff and make it cheap, and I'll live. That's how people vote. That's why we're in the mess we're in. Could be spread too thin, but part of Sam's point. Who's catching up?
everywhere.
Who? Europe is vague. Everyone is unacceptable. Because is it really everyone?
USA.
China.
The United States is who close? Not yet. The Majiva from your last test. That Germany. Germany becomes a country and then goes all in. We're catching up now. Remember Bismarck's ideas? What were the two things you need to be a successful country? What was his saying? His motto? Bismarck. Probably one of those things. Just blood and iron is all you need. You take over, you fight for it, and you build it. Germany, the United States, colonies are expensive, so in and of themselves, they are a hindrance to growth. Colonies are very expensive. Colonies are really not. You have to keep getting more. They just are because you got to oversee them. You got to send troops and political institutions. You got to build infrastructure so you can exploit your resources and get them out of the country. They're expensive. Germany and the United States emerged as new formidable industrial rivals to Britain. Well done, both of you. America has the benefit of being, well, a cousin, right? Yeah, cousins, right? English are cousins. Geopolitically speaking. And Germany has the benefit of being, well, close to England and Belgium and being on a continent like Europe that's very small, and they're very well organized. Relative levels of industrial, so from 1750 to 1900. Look, England's still doing fine. Don't get me wrong. Remember, when they say that an economy slows, if they say that our economy today is slowing, that is just relative to our economy. It is not in direct comparison to the rest of the world. It just means relative to what we're used to. It's slowing. England is still going up. Its rate of change is less. So it's not like all of a sudden they're poor. It doesn't work that way. But others are going to start chipping away at markets and at resources and other things like that. So they're going to come. Germany, United States is like, woo! All right. It actually makes that noise if you listen to a graph. Okay. The darkest blue countries are the most industrial today. There you go. How many of those countries?
Wait, China's not very good. China makes more.
Do they?
They farm a lot.
Okay. What do most Chinese people do, Ben H?
Farm.
They farm.
35%.
They still farm. Instead of wondering, which is nothing wrong with wondering, I'm glad someone knows it. Okay. Argentina and Chile are, interestingly enough, very industrial. Saudi Arabia. Also remember too that they represent the entire country, but not necessarily the entire country. A lot of Europe. And we can talk about why, which would be a nice question, why these areas and not the others. Geography plays a part, stable government plays a part, imperialism plays a part, which is a nice segue into where we're going. But that's today. Become a little white dots of nothing in the Caribbean. And poor Nova Scotia.
But why is Indonesia so not ever food?
Indonesia? What do they do?
They make a lot of stuff.
Do they? What's their major economic, but not enough? Now remember, they may make a lot of stuff, and they could very well be industrial. The shade of blue does not mean they're totally devoid of industry. Most industrial. So this is breaking it down by levels of industriousness. This doesn't mean that they don't have industry, but comparatively speaking, they're not dark blue.
So it's a ranking, not a rating.
It's just based on, it's probably based on GDP and output. If I had to, I mean, if I was to look up the data on these slides, yes.
I was gonna ask, how do they know? Like, how do they define?
Typically
industrial?
GDP. How much are you producing and what are you selling? The U.S. is the most industrious country and has an average household income of $54,000. That's the average household income in America at the time of this slide. The Congo is the least industrial country and has an average household income of $231. And remember,
Is there
but,
any stuff on there? In Africa?
It's under the thing, actually.
and remember too that both those numbers are in American dollars, and how far the money in the Congo goes is relative. It's still not a lot of money. Yes, ma'am. That's at the time of the slide. So 20 something. Why? What's your question? Well, these slides go through 2017, so it's 4 years. It's 4 years old now. For an average household income? Well, that is America.
Yeah.
But don't you think it would have? But it's a little less, which means that's when that slide was made. Yeah, 2017. This is, yeah, that's the point. Yeah.
One person, it's like 1 point something people, because some households have 2 people, some have 3.
Right, and then we can disaggregate that. That's a good point. You know, the household income is the combined household average income. So the number of members of the house drawing an income play into that number. That's a good point. All right. Again, y'all, yeah, Ben,
What did the gray spots?
typically no data.
The,
Somalia and South Sudan have no data, and North Korea has no data, and Taiwan has no data, and I can tell you why for all of them. And Greenland has no data. Because Taiwan calls itself Taiwan, and China says it's China. So,
oh, okay.
So if you're a Chinese political figure, whatever the income is, whatever the household income of China is the household income of Taiwan, because it's all one country. If you're Taiwanese, they just didn't report the data out, probably because China doesn't know. North Korea doesn't report it out because they only report out the good stats. North Korea withholds information. Somalia is a failed state. There is no central government at the moment. That's why, what's their number one industry?
Somalia is-
Piracy. Literal Captain Jack Sparrow, piracy. I'm the boss now.
on the western side of Africa.
Western Sahara, Morocco doesn't think it exists. It thinks it's part of, Africa, Africa in a nutshell, hot mess. Okay, and then South Sudan just has its own issues as well. They were part of Denmark until just a few years ago, and so it just didn't report out. No,
They're their own country.
I believe so.
I thought there was Greenland. Kingdom of Denmark.
Kingdom of Denmark, yeah, I know. I thought it changed. All right.
So it says it's the territory.
Because it's
Does
like
it?
50,000 people in Greenland.
Well, it's also like Scotland has its own stuff and it's still part of the UK. As wages increase, more defined gender roles emerge, so the gender roles even get more defined. Yay, progress. Women are now less likely to work outside the home, whereas during the first Industrial Revolution, they were like, get me out of here. The house, that is. But then between the first two revolutions, you have the whole cult of domesticity and the idea that that's where a woman should be. So fewer women work. Yes, ma'am.
Is this like one happens out of nowhere, one happens like right away, or is there a little like gap or transition?
Well, remember, the first Industrial Revolution begins in earnest towards the end of the 1700s. This one begins in earnest at the end of the 1800s because you got to go through all the wars and all the turmoil, all the push and the pull. Right, Hunter?
Yep.
Are we going to go for civil wars?
That's the next unit. All right. G, the emergence of the global economy. This is the best thing in the world to segue into imperialism. We now have industry. Your countries now have the means to make things. They have the means to sell things. They have cool ships and railroads and all that stuff. There are now ways to communicate deals via the radio and the telegraph, which came out during this time period as well. We have phones. So we can talk to people on the other side of the globe. The world is beginning to get even smaller. Information is traveling much more quickly than it was just 15 years, 20 years prior, kind of like now. It hasn't stopped. The Industrial Revolution has not stopped. And with the need for a market and the need for customers and the need for resources so that your global economy can push its way up from the ground and grow and prosper, well, you're going to need to have countries in other places. So it kind of dovetails nicely into imperialism. So here we go. Industrialization fundamentally altered the production of goods. We know this, okay? There's no reason to write this. You know this. Take a second and read the slides. We know it fundamentally altered the production of goods around the world. We know it did it between the 17th and the 19th centuries because that's when it did it. I mean, that's when the Industrial Revolution 1 and 2 took place. Now, it does alter the production of goods around the world. It does not, and I like the fact that this slide reads this, it does not say that it improved everywhere, that everybody benefited or everybody was impacted. Because believe it or not, even in 1900, everybody is not impacted by what the big countries are doing. Not yet. Oh, sorry. Bless you. New global trade and production patterns emerged, integrating the global economy Industrialists, they needed raw materials and they needed markets. Now, excellent moment here to stop and think about what we've covered this year and now. New global trade markets. For you to know the new ones, what must you know? The old ones. Where are our old trade markets? Where are the older trade markets? Like, where do we go? Ben, C.
Trans-Saharan,
Got
Indian.
Trans-Saharan, the Indian, and the Silk Road. Those are your unit. Those are your global tapestry beginning trade routes. Then where do we expand trade routes? Yeah. Yeah, then it goes to the Atlantic. And so the trade networks, these don't die. Remember, these networks don't go away. They just take a hit from a volume standpoint. Now we have more networks and more trades. Now more people are coming in contact with more goods. They're going to trade. They're going to change again. Because something else I believe that happens at the end of the 19th century is 2 canals are built. Or one is built and then one is going to be built shortly thereafter, which are irrevocably going to alter trade patterns unless unless you can't sail a ship through the canal. Then, well, but yeah, Ben H.
Where's the other?
Panama,
What's the other?
Suez,
Oh,
the one with the that's in Egypt. It's the one where the ship was carried. Yes. No, it's not still stuck. Yeah,
how wide is like the Panama?
wide enough for a big enough boat. I mean, that's a horrible answer, but it's wide enough. Yeah. Think about it, they actually cut a country in half. I mean, well, not necessarily, they bisected countries. Like that's crazy engineering. All right. So that's just a nice kind of continuity and change thing all in a map. Trade networks haven't stopped. Continuity. The old trade networks probably exist in some form or another. I would imagine that the Silk Road less than in its capacity, but the importance of it is not going. So the roads are there, where the roads are, and the importance of the roads, that's the change. Gosh, I would love if that was the question. All right, Middle East, Southwest Asian, and Asian, it's a horrible slide. All the countries of Asia, from Turkey to Japan, continue to produce manufactured goods, but their share in manufacturing declines. So they're still making stuff, but their market share is declining. They're selling less and less and less of their stuff to other people for a number of reasons that you can probably figure out. This one? Yeah.
So market shares mean they're just like selling less?
A market means a market share. The share of a market means your customer base is shrinking. Yep.
So are
Yeah.
they still producing like, does that mean they're overproducing? Or they lowered their production to meet their?
They're gonna have to lower production because these people. There are people in Asia, in the various parts of Asia, that are producing textiles, that are producing steel. Maybe not to the level of, but that's just it. They can't match output, and when you can't match output, you can't match price. So they're making some of the same things. They just can't compete scale wise. Yes.
But isn't everything super cheap? Like, the next step was super cheap.
1900s. Okay. Why would they be able to make it super cheap?
Labor time.
China does. But okay, so that's labor. That's one part of. All right. So. Okay.
They could easily match if they built on factories.
There's the rub. Okay. So means of production. So China has labor, right? Even in the 1900s, China has labor. What else do you need to have industry?
Capital.
You need capital. How is their capital? What else do you need?
Materials.
You need materials, and they don't have all the materials. They don't have the infrastructure. They're not electrified. They don't have roads. They're not set up developmentally as a country to keep up with Europe. From a labor standpoint, China is always going to have, China and India not always, but for the foreseeable future, are going to have absolute advantage over the rest of the world when it comes to labor. So, but they don't have the rest of it. They can't compete. And it's huge. And most of China's population in the 1900s is rural. Actually, most of the world's population is rural until about 1980. So they just can't compete. Plus, culturally speaking, it's never been their thing to go spread China to everybody. Industrialized countries with wealth, natural resources, and government support became the economic, military, and political powers in the world. Those three, that's sort of like the superpower pyramid. Those are like the three legs. You have to have resources. You have to, and that's natural resources. You have to have capital as a country. You have to have wealth that you can invest into your industries, and you have to have a government willing to invest that capital into innovation, into technology, into those things. And if you don't have those, it's very difficult to be a world power. Again, after we break up with England, same government. Constitutionally speaking, on paper. Germany had that little hiccup in the 30s, but the government's desire to be involved in innovation did not wane. The resources Germany had did not go away. So they were able to do that as well. The core nations benefit the most from world trade. Oh my goodness. Core countries, semi-periphery countries, and periphery countries. Wow. Okay. The core countries drive trade. They drive the world's trade. What?
Why is Greenland the place that drives the world?
Because it's part of Denmark. Yeah. Yeah. If this map was more detailed, all the little islands would be a color, and yeah. The semi-periphery countries benefit less than the core nations, but they're just on the fringes. They work both ways. The periphery nations benefit the least, and it should not surprise you where they are. Okay, so when you're looking at this map, and you people there as well, when you're looking at this map, go back to the previous slide. If you are blue, chances are you have capital, you have resources, and you have a government that is stable and willing to invest. If you are semi-periphery, you're a mix of two of the three parts of each one. And if you're in the periphery, you don't have any, or you maybe have one, like you're not in a position. So these two slides kind of play out who has and who has not. Yes, sir. Yes, it is modern day. Canada is part of the Commonwealth, but Canada gains its independence in the 1800s.
Oh, it has like
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was just like
Lakes and ponds.
Okay, so he knows about chemistry, and he knows about, but no, okay, yeah. No, Canada is more than lakes and hockey, eh? All right. Where are the factories? Toronto, Ottawa, Alberta, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Vancouver, Moose Jaw, Medicine Hat. No, I don't know.
There's a place called Moose Jaw.
There's a place called Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
That is so Canadian.
All right. What is it? 70% of Canada's population lives 100 miles from the American border. Yeah.
they want to they all live in like a circle.
Okay. All right. Moving on. All right. And then you can see the countries that aren't reporting any data. All right. Merchants and companies based in Europe and the U.S. become dominant parts of the economy. And remember, when you are a colonizing country, India is part of England. So wherever factories are and you have a flag, that's your factory. America's economy is still the highest in the world because we have factories in other places, but they're still our factories. That reminds me, Apple's show is today.
It's
Apple's reveal show is today.
certain people was.
Like who's the
product?
Yeah.
He said it was stronger than.
What did we talk about?
That's what he said.
Hold on. What did we talk about? Why is it $500? Why is it $500? No, it's part of it. It's why. Because people will, that's not too much money. So it's our fault that things cost what they cost. It's called equilibrium price. All right.
They just roll by the new iPhone.
All right. I always skip. All right. Anyway, no, not 5, more than 5. Anyway, all right. I always skip a generation. Right? The logos, right? The British Empire and other industrialized countries ruled colonies based on an economic philosophy of mercantilism. See? Continuity. Still there. If I have the resources, Germany, you don't. If I have the resources, France, you don't. You have to come to me. I can set terms. I mean, I win. It's all about winning. It is. Historically speaking. All right. There you go.
I was wondering why, I totally forgot that Australia was.
That's in Friday's lecture. That's where the prisoners went. Because if they escape, who cares? They're not getting back to England anytime soon. And every animal in Australia will kill you. So every animal in Australia is lethal. It seems. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Get your eyes out. They're not mean. They're mean. They're not cute and cuddly at all. Pandas are the same way. Yes. They're not Australian, but they're mean cats. Mercantilist policies force colonies to supply raw materials. So when England first settles here in America, there are raw materials. Trees first, then all the crops we grow. But then through policies, through laws, the American colonists could only sell their goods to England. They could only go on British ships back to England, and then Britain would turn the raw materials into finished products that the American colonists had to buy. So by having colonies, you have resources and you have an instant ready market of customers. What?
It's not great for colonists. They have to like.
Right. Which is part of the reason we're like, hey, this stinks. I want to be independent, so then I can do this to people. No, I'm kidding. So, but that's also why we have pirates. Because France you could make more money selling your stuff to France, so people would go and say, hey, pay me, I'll take it to France. And they try and outrun the British ships.
That's a pirate.
One of them, for the longest time, pirates were legal and Britain used them to mess with the Spanish. You were paid. You were part of the British government. You were a privateer. A pirate with a permission slip. And then Spain became less of an issue and Britain's like, stop. And then, anyway, there's a documentary series or like a faux documentary about pirates on Netflix that talks about it. Kingdom of the Pirates, I think. Anyway, not made for school. And again, this is the mother country. This is the goal of mercantilism. The mother country has its colonies. The colonies provide all this stuff to the mother country. And in return, you get whatever the mother country decides to give you. Mercantilism. This is what led, this is a post-crusade phenomenon that led to going to the Dutch East India Company and all that kind of stuff. It's all there. It's all connected. What's the point of view of this cartoon? Yeah, document analysis. Is this a pro-mercantilist cartoon? Who is it a pro-cartoon of? No, who looks best? Remember, the pro would be who looks the best here. You think so?
Yeah.
They're giving up all their stuff. They're serving the country.
Hello.
Well, they view them as pretty young ladies, and then they view the mother country as that fat old lady.
Yeah.
I see where we went. We went to outward appearances. Okay. All right.
And they-
I'll leave this one.
All right. The need for raw materials and food for a growing population in Europe led to this as well. Remember, with the agricultural revolution, more people can live, so more people are being born. Industrialization, need more hands to work. We are well aware of germs now, and so we understand diseases, and people are living longer. We're all moving towards stage 3 in development, in Europe anyway. So we need more resources to feed our growing population. Those export economies specialize in natural resources. The profits from raw materials are used to purchase finished goods. So if you're a sugar plantation owner in the Caribbean or in Louisiana, and you sell your raw sugar, the profit you make, you're then able to take that money and buy all the finished products coming back to you. And you're able to take part in the good life. The people who are selling the raw materials, not the field hands. No, yeah, okay. All right. Desired raw materials included oil, iron, and other metals, coal, cotton, rubber, palm oil, sugar, wheat, meat, guano, and fruit. Is that bat poop? Yeah, it's poop, yeah. I'm going to assume for fertilizers. Yeah, it's for fertilizers. Okay. There you go. Now, geographically speaking, at the beginning of the 1900s, where would you readily find oil? Oil in the beginning, in the 1900s. Where is the most obvious? Southwest Asia. Thank you. No, not whale oil. This is not whale. This is the other oil. But thank you. A voice from beyond spoke to me. I'm excited. Okay, and it's not hooked up to the speakers.
Is it so it's the same?
What?
So it's like the same.
Well, no. Now there's oil. Scotland has oil. There's oil off the coast here, and there's oil in the Gulf here, and there's oil here, and there's oil here, and there's oil in Africa. Just wait till they figure out how to get it out of the ground. You think Africa's a mess now? What? Yeah.
But like, does like Saturday and all that still a lot of people?
Yeah, but it's a million years in the process kind of thing, and eventually there's only so many years of usable oil reserve left.
Yeah.
Like 30.
There's 50 something. 45 now, I think.
But that's based on current population and based on current usage. If you project more usage.
They that's more population going up there.
All right. Well, good. Yeah, Ben.
So what are we gonna do when all the oil is gone?
Walk. Ride a bike.
Use the
Electric
of course.
Electric cars require chemicals that are just as bad for the environment as gasoline-powered engines.
But you don't
Yes.
need, you don't need the gasoline.
They strip mine all part. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's horrible. Oh no! What you'll do when we run out of oil is you'll hear me laughing at how we should have had mass transportation 30 years ago. And so, no, like there need to be trains and subways everywhere. America needs to give up its car. All right, but you got to build on the ground. It's too expensive. Okay.
Yeah, because
A need for specialized and limited metals led to develop mining centers. Notice a couple of things. One, minerals and metals are everywhere. So in a way, that would be good. And for the countries south of the equator, which develop differently than countries north of the equator, unless you're Australia, because, England. But the resources are there. And remember, when going back to the whole idea of why these people are economic powers and why they're not. Well, resources isn't the issue for almost every country on the planet. So it's the other two. It's capital and it's government. But if they can ever stabilize their governments, they might be okay. Or get those other governments out of there. But there's all sorts of reasons why it's like that. So mining centers develop and controlling those colonies to get those mines develops. The maps in this unit today are really, really good from helping tie things together and paint pictures. So I've enjoyed this today. Wait, you call him Dr. Jones. No, all right. Mining centers included copper mines in Mexico, gold and diamond mines in South Africa. Cotton grown in South Asia, Egypt, the Caribbean, and North America was exported to Europe, especially Great Britain. Now, I think now it's Ethiopia grows cotton, Nigeria grows cotton. Next slide. That's what I think it is. One of my favorite inputs. Anybody know what those are?
Here's one.
Palm. Those are nuts from palm trees, as well as but palm oil is used for machinery lubricant. It can be used for cooking, lubricating agent in industrial machines, and in soap. And that goes back to if there's other materials aside from lye, which is caustic and burns your skin. Soap, so we can be clean. And again, the whole idea of public sanitation and cleanliness is going to add to an increased population because people aren't dying of being filthy. So now we need more resources, so we need to get more countries. It's just this big economic circle. Bananas. Latin America, India, parts of Asia, and Africa became dependent on the production of a single cash crop. These are called banana republics. And it's also because of a type of government. One cash crop. And it can be good if harnessed right, but there are limitations. There are pros and cons. I know. Obviously not a fan of bananas. But there are pros and cons to a banana republic. And by the way, correct end to open a banana. Incorrect end to open a banana. Yes. Because that's the stem. It opens right here perfectly. Yeah. Perfect.
It's so much easier to do.
You're an animal.
Oh, and
You're an animal.
I'll banana.
It's so I can always.
Exactly.
I can eat it.
Yes, they're perfect. They're close.
Seed at the bottom.
Exploited banana republics dominated by foreign investors and landowners. Most people were poor and internal markets struggled, so they were taken advantage of. One of the most popular banana republics in American history, Hawaii. They got pineapples, so we're going to get rid of a king. We'll talk about them a little bit more later, too. But because of remember, too, that most banana republics, if you go back to the countries listed, are where crops like that are grown. It's going to be plantation style, so chances are it's colonized in the first wave in the 16th century, 17th century. Former slave populations, because all slaves by 1900. Yeah, America was the last one. Oh, no, I take that back. South American countries were the last ones. So because that's where all the slave owners went when the war ended. All right.
Are so many things called banana?
Because it's one thing, and the way it's run, look, the way it's run, you've got the local people have no idea what's going on. You got one guy in charge making all the rules, changing as he goes, doesn't follow the rule of law.
I'll talk about like
The store, Banana Republic, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a clothing store, like a sunscreen.
No, because it's a name that they know. It's just name recognition. I hope it's not made that way. Dominance by industrializations led to global economic inequality of wealth and a worldwide division of labor. So the social stratification that you saw in France and in countries, this is just that on a global scale. So some countries are going to be the upper. So now you can take this because everything is scalable. Anything that's going on in North Carolina, you can scale it. Bless you. You can scale it out to larger. This is same sort of stratification you saw in France or England or wherever on a global scale. Now you have countries at the top of the ladder and countries at the bottom of the ladder. That's what this does. By tying the network, by tying the entire globe or larger portions of the globe to the economy, you're going to have this. Yeah. Sure. Workers in European colonies supplied raw materials. European workers produced manufactured goods. Then those goods went to other places. Again, nothing's changing. We've already spoken of this. To facilitate investments in other countries' wealthy finance, in other countries, you people would develop financial institutions where you could borrow money to go and expand your economic base somewhere else. So global banks and global lending centers and the idea of sort of like a world bank, so to speak, start to take shape during this time period because the need for that kind of capital at the country level is essential if you're going to grow and be competitive. Because now think about this. We know who are successful during this time period. We know who's successful now. And who's successful now, a lot of them are the same people. A lot of them are different people. But all those things that are needed must have fallen in line. And there are places in the world that are probably never, ever, ever, I know it's rather hyperbolic, going to have all three of those legs. They're just never going to have a chance. That's why one of the things that was mentioned at the turn of this century was canceling the debt of all those countries in Africa. Because a lot of them, the interest rates on the loans they have is so high they can't make the interest part of their interest of their rates. The ideological inspiration of economic changes coincided with Adam Smith. So all of this stuff that begins in the 16 and 17 and 1800s all just kind of met in this perfect little capitalist storm of Adam Smith, the idea of free markets and the idea of controlling markets and having customers and supply and demand. It all just kind of came together perfectly. Stock market expanded, the idea of a stock market. Insurance companies developed so that you could invest your business, you could actually insure your business or your shipping line or your factories from loss to help you out. Because if you can, you know, what a great business idea. You're going to pay me money. Think about it. Insurance, you're paying in the hopes of never using it. You pay into something that you never want to use. But what it does, and I'll just speak economically, is it kind of makes you less worried about taking risks. And that's what countries want you to do. So it's not a bad thing. The gold standard allowed countries to value each other's currency more accurately. So again, how much gold you physically possessed handled your base was the basis of your economy. So if you've got this much gold, then your money's worth this much. And we know how much gold is worth because we've established that. So everybody else's value is based on their amount of gold. So you can only have as much money in circulation as you had gold to back it. And that's the way it was until the Depression. Couldn't print more money, couldn't make more money, so it controlled how much money was out there. So if you had more gold, you had more wealth, which is why people went to Africa and took gold. Yes?
What's standard?
What's what?
What's standard?
There isn't one. A $10 bill is worth $10 because I hold it up and say, oh, look, that's $10. No, it's just what do we believe it's worth? All right, enough.
Could you go back to
Okay, thanks. Limited liability corporations meant invest. Okay, so an LLC, a limited liability corporation. The idea of a corporation means you only lost what you put in. So if you guys all go into investments together and the whole company is worth $10 billion, but each of you only put $1 billion in, that's all you're responsible for. So you're only responsible for what you actually invest. This is how countries work today. This is how people are able to keep their assets. Like if their companies, if Johnson & Johnson really gets hammered because of their vaccine, all the money I've made from working at Johnson & Johnson is mine, but the company I lose that money. It protects you from what a company does. Because it used to not, and this was definitely put in to help early management. But also to convince people to invest their capital into this, because money has to go into this. The global nature of trade and production contribute to the proliferation of large-scale transnational businesses. In other words, because the world is interconnected, having a company in 6 different countries makes more sense for resources and for material, for resources and for market. So it's just a country, it's just a business across countries, transnational. Like these people, HSBC. In 1865, Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Company was established. British bank financed trade between Asia and Europe. So this banking center is established to foster trade between the 2 largest economic powers at that time. It's also part of the reason why China really wants Hong Kong to toe the line. And there are others, of course. This just shows you countries that have that banking operation today. That is definitely a transnational, multi-large, big, super ginormous corporation. I guess the Mongolians want no part. Or North Korea. It can't be a risk. You know why Africa? Remember, banks are for-profit people. The worst place to put your money if you want your money to do anything for you is in a bank. Your money works for banks, not for you. All right.
We make money.
Banks make money with your money. You make next to no money with your money in a bank.
They make money, you get the car.
Invest it. Don't put your money in a bank. In 1899, United Fruit Company, based in the United States, owned fruit plantations throughout Central America and the Caribbean. I believe they become Dole. Yeah, Dole. Bananas, pineapples, sugar, fruit cups, Dole whips. Oh, I had my first churro.
What?
Disney?
When?
Disney first? Yeah. First churro.
Really?
Gotta go man in the churro.
But it's
That's
good.
fair.
They're good, but they're not like life altering.
Oh, yeah, definitely not like
I'd rather have like sopapillas than churro things.
The what?
Sopapilla? Yeah, but are you eating ice cream? Or fried ice cream?
Oh,
Fried ice cream is different than sopapilla. All right. You like roll it in like cereal or something, just flash fry it really quick in the freezer so the outside's crunchy and the inside's still cold. All right. Industrial countries encourage changes in transportation. Basically, when they imperialize, that's a horrible word. But when, okay, England goes into India and they're like, gosh, we have all these resources, but hacking through the jungle is a pain. You people need a road. So they build them. So the mother countries go in and they build infrastructure. They build roads, they electrify it, they build ports. Usually just from the mine to the port. They don't electrify cities or improve the roads in the cities just to help get the goods out. All the infrastructure changes that are done solely for economic gain. Which is part of the reason that, post-imperialism, part of the reason these countries are in a mess is there's no infrastructure. One thing we could do to really help the way we look in the rest of the world, especially Southwest Asia, is like we're leaving Afghanistan for good by next August. So go build some schools and go build some roads and go electrify it and then get out and let them deal with themselves. British East Africa Company, winter home for the aristocrats. Very nice. All right, Uganda Railway. Again, so this transportation network in India, a railway put in Uganda with observation cars to watch all the wild animals. Steamships made previously inaccessible parts of the world more accessible, including into Africa. Part of the reason that Africa is always white, like from a lack of color from other countries for the longest time, is because you couldn't get in it. Those natives fought back. And malaria. There were diseases in Africa that Europeans had never seen. So Europeans, in an ironic twist of fate, were dying trying to get into the center of Africa. It was called the Dark Continent for two reasons. One, the racial one, and then one, because it was mysterious because we knew nothing about it because we couldn't get off the coast. Other than the trade networks in the desert, into the true heart and interior of Africa was just a risky proposition. 1869, the Suez Canal was completed in Egypt between the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. Faster trade. Thank you, France. In England. In 1914, the Panama Canal opened up. Again, not having to go all the way around South America or all the way around Africa. It's going to shave time. It's going to shave cost. It's going to lower prices. Railroads allowed industrial countries to extract raw materials and access markets in the interior of their colonial possessions, get off the coast, move inland. The telegraph and undersea telegraph cable, some of the first ones are from the east coast of the United States to Europe. The Siemens Corporation, SIEMENS, are the first ones to do it. Underwater cables allowed us to talk to one another more quickly. Deals can get done. We can find out what's going on. And this communication also aids stock markets. Because when our market closes, other ones open. And those impact our stocks. And remember, a stock market has nothing to do with the health of an economy. Nothing. It just means we think it's going in the right direction. It's a psychology test. All right. We are now globally connected as much as we can be. At the turn of the 20th century, we're to the 1900s. We've only mentioned a couple of people. Actually, we've only mentioned England. But they are not the only people who get in on this. Imperialism begins tomorrow. And that's when things start to pick up a little bit. And we start talking about fighting over resources and what's going to happen when some of the local people just get tired of being taken advantage of. So that's where we'll pick up tomorrow. Enjoy your lunch. What's your question?
Generally, you guys think it's on tomorrow, on Friday? Is that still true? Yesterday?
Well, the imperialism in Oceania and Africa will be over the weekend.
Okay, so what's the end of
It's this weekend. Yep. All right. Thanks, everybody.